We know who the Red Sox non-tendered, and somehow, some way, Ryan Brasier still is on the 40-man roster.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. I am your host, NESN's Lauren Willand. I am flying solo today. Jake will be back tomorrow, but we have some things to talk about with Ryan Brasier still being on the 40-man roster. The Red Sox non-tender deadline, the MLB non-tender deadline was Friday. So we'll talk about who they did not tender, who still remains on the roster after that, and also take a look at some recent reports that came out over the weekend that the Red Sox aren't don't be surprised. The Red Sox will not go after people like Justin Verlander, Jacob deGrom. But going into Friday's non-tender deadline, many thought Brasier was a lock to not get tendered a contract, but we were very, very wrong. First, what is the non-tender deadline exactly? It's pretty simple. 8 p.m. on Friday Eastern Time, teams across the league would have to decide whether to tender contracts to their arbitration-eligible players. If a player is not tendered a contract, they become a free agent. So people that were tendered contracts were pretty obvious. The Rafael Devers, Nick Pivetta, Alex Verdugo, Christian Arroyo, Reese McGuire, they were all tendered contracts. They can negotiate their 2023 salaries at a later date. And the players that were non-tendered were Franchy Cordero and Yu Chang. So yes, Ryan Brasier, Josh Taylor still on the 40-man roster. There's still cuts to be made throughout the offseason, so it's potential that they could be there, but judging from Chaim Bloom's comments and Mass Live's Chris Cotillo said that Brian O'Halloran told them that Brasier is part of their plans. Why? I don't know. How? I don't know. Yes, he pitched better at the end of 2022, but I think he's shown enough. Like his sample size is big enough where we know that he's not exactly reliable. And it's not like he's 25 years old. He's 35. He's just not good for this Red Sox team. You want to make this Red Sox team better. You want to make this bullpen better for 2023. It shouldn't include Ryan Brasier. But anyway, Franchy Cordero came to the Red Sox in February 2021. He was part of that 3-team deal, you probably remember, that sent Andrew Benintendi to the Kansas City Royals. So this kind of looks bad for the Red Sox that they're not tendering contracts to people involved in a trade and getting rid of someone like Andrew Benintendi, who had a ton of hype around him, just kind of lost his touch here, I guess, when he was in Boston. But Franchy Cordero he struggled so much offensively. And yes, there was some flashes of his potential. He had the walk-off grand slam against Seattle in May. Really fun moment there. That was the day of my bridal shower. So it was just that was like his shining moment. That was really not the only good thing he did while he was in Boston, but one of the only things that was super memorable, that was positive. And like I said, he did show flashes of brilliance at the plate. He did show that, but it was never consistent. He was constantly struggling to make contact. He struck out a lot. And when I say a lot, I mean he struck out 92 times in 275 plate appearances in 2022. And his time with the Red Sox has just not been consistent either. They outrighted him during the 2021 season, brought him back to the minor league system when nobody claimed him off waivers. Gee, I wonder why. Then he was added back to the 40-man roster and rejoined the Red Sox on April 29th, but he was optioned to Worcester several times throughout this season, and he was very well liked in Worcester. He was really good with the fans. He was really funny, just a really good guy to be around. But being a good guy doesn't mean you're going to be good at the plate. You can be the best person in the world, and it doesn't matter if you're not going to produce at the plate, because at the end of the day, this is a business and you need to decide who makes your team better, who doesn't. Franchy doesn't, neither does Ryan Brasier, but that is okay. Yu Chang also was non-tendered. I don't think that's really much of a surprise. He didn't play very much in the Red Sox system this year, so not really sad. Not really sad to see Franchy go either, but there's no shock factor there, I guess. There's nothing that when these two players weren't non-tendered, they're not a surprise. but it is a surprise that Ryan Brasier still is on this roster. I just want to know why, how, what does he know for the Red Sox? What does he have against them? What does he have on them? It is very, very interesting to see that he's still on this roster after his struggles, after his inconsistencies, after just completely melting down in 2022. And yes, we can look at the 2022 season and say that it wasn't good for many, many people. It was not a good season all around for this team. But it's not like Ryan Brasier was so good before and so dominant. And now he's just kind of trying to find his groove. He's been trying to find his groove since he came to the Red Sox. And I still do not know why he is on this roster. And if Brian O'Halloran is telling Mass Live that he is part of the future, I have reason to believe he's going to be here opening day 2023. We did see him get optioned to Worcester as well, but it didn't last because of just the injuries and the instability in that bullpen. So again, it's just if you want this team to be better in 2023, you need to work on that bullpen. You need to work on your starting pitching. The offense, I think, will be fine. It was very disappointing in 2022, but I think they'll be fine. Yes, there's that possibility that Xander Bogaerts will leave, but that's a bridge we will cross if and when we get to it. And someone like Ryan Brasier, I will die on this hill. He doesn't make this team better. The team is better when he's not on the roster. And maybe, hopefully, I have no optimism surrounding Brasier. Maybe he'll be really good in 2023. I don't see that happening at all. I don't think that's the case, but maybe I'll be proven wrong. Maybe he will be a steady piece in this bullpen. I hope I'm wrong that he's not, that I think he's going to be terrible next year. The same as he's always been. I shouldn't, terrible, whatever. I think that he's not going to be this pitcher the Red Sox want him to be, or that the pitcher the Red Sox think he is, because he's just been the same pitcher. Twitter was exploding with takes about why he's on this team. Why does he still have a contract? So I would love to know why. I would love to know their thinking behind it, besides that they just truly believe he's part of this future, because I don't. I don't think he makes this bullpen better. I think he makes it worse. And I think he gives the Red Sox less of a chance of winning every single time, 9 times out of 10, that he's on the mound. Speaking of pitching, going into our second segment of the Locked On Red Sox podcast, we are going to talk about a report from the Boston Globe's Alex Spear that the Red Sox don't really seem too interested in pitchers like Justin Verlander and Jake deGrom. We'll get into that as soon as I tell you about BetOnline, because betonline.net is your number one source for betting sports info, stats, news, and analysis. You can get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football and basketball to soccer, esports. We've got it all at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find all those as well right at BetOnline. We're always the fastest and the easiest way to get your sports betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. Like I said, all the sports are out there. The Bruins, who are just dominating the NHL, the Celtics dominating the NBA. Fun time to be a Boston basketball and hockey fan. There's also football as well. Patriots had a very exciting win. The last play of the game was the only excitement in that game. You can find all those odds at betonline.net, where the game starts. Thank you for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard, behind the scenes with local experts and insights that only Locked On can provide. That's Locked On Sports Today, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. So pitching is a big thing here. The Red Sox desperately need help when it comes to pitching. And according to the Boston Globe's Alex Spear, the Red Sox, quote, appear unlikely to enter the bidding for Justin Verlander, Jacob deGrom, Carlos Rodon, and Chris Bassitt. They're all available this winter. I think the Red Sox should at least look into them. They are the interest kings, quote unquote, interest kings after all. Why aren't they even looking at them? It appears that Chaim Bloom will kind of look at who's below them, like in the next tier, not the bottom tier, but like the next tier. So you have the top tier of the cake, then you have the second tier of the cake. So they're kind of in there, it seems like. Now, when it comes to deGrom, obviously he has the injury history, and I understand if the Red Sox want to stay away from him, given Chris Sale's history, and Chris Sale's still on the roster. but I'd still welcome him here. If you give him, I mean, again, it's probably going to be like Verlander where you're going to have a big salary there, but he's been very dominant for the Mets. And in seasons, season after season after season, this guy doesn't get any run support and he's still dominating. His ERA is always so low. He's so good on the mound when he's healthy. So I understand if the Red Sox want to stay away from him, but it's at least worth checking in. And so is it with Justin Verlander. He opted out of his deal with the Astros. They probably could risk to sign him to a low risk, kind of a shorter term deal. But someone like Verlander, who is like Patrice Bergeron when it comes to just getting better with age, seems to be no slowing Verlander down. He's just continuing to play better as he gets older, even after Tommy John surgery at his age. He's on the quote unquote wrong side of 30 here, 35. So he's no spring chicken. We know this, but everything he does is just so good on the mound. But that salary would probably be quite high, understandably, for somebody like Verlander. So the Red Sox seem to be out on him. Obviously, I would love to have Justin Verlander on this Red Sox roster. That would very much help this rotation. And same with Bassitt and Rodon, they would immediately provide boosts to this rotation. There's no doubt about that. Checked out MLB trade rumors and they projected Rodon for a 5-year, $140 million deal, and Bassitt had a 3-year, $60 million deal. So that is probably more what the Red Sox would probably want to spend. But you look at these pitchers who are available and Chaim Bloom keeps saying we're going to be better in 2023. Any 4 of those guys would make your team better, and you're not even going to take a peek. This is not good for Red Sox fans. So there's obviously more options out there. Those aren't the only 4 pitchers out there. But when you see those big names that the Red Sox probably can't afford, and they're not even going to entertain the possibility of bringing them here, that's probably not going to sit well with Red Sox fans, especially when pitching is such a big issue going into this offseason. Yes, the Red Sox have a slew of pitchers, but who can you really trust? You have James Paxton, who obviously opted into his $4 million player option or exercised the $4 million player option earlier in November. Garrett Whitlock will move to the rotation. So you'll have, I'm assuming Paxton will be a starter, but let's just assume Garrett Whitlock and James Paxton are starters. So you have Nick Pivetta, Brian Bayo, and Chris Sale. Those are your 5 starters right there. The Red Sox reportedly are trying to bring back Nate Eovaldi on a multi-year deal. There's Michael Wacha out there too, who's a free agent after not receiving a qualifying offer. And then you have depth pieces. You have Tanner Houck, you have Josh Winkowski, Connor Siebold, Cutter Crawford, Brian Mata. But again, you need stability, you need reliability, and you need trust. And as often as Chris Sale has come through clutch, he's been off the mound more than on it for the Red Sox during his extension that he signed with Boston. And it's obviously not ideal. And you have pitchers out there who could boost this rotation. You don't need Garrett Whitlock to be a starter. I know that's what he was brought up as, but I just, if you've been listening to this long enough, you know that I want Garrett Whitlock in the bullpen. Team Whitlock in the bullpen all the way. But I will say, and I've said this before, if they are going to commit to Garrett Whitlock as a starter, then stick with him as a starter. Have him prepare in the offseason to be a starter, spring training, starter, build him up. None of this back and forth on, flashbacks of Daniel Bard just absolutely destroying his career. And then thankfully he was able to come back years later. But it's kind of like that. You don't want that to happen to Garrett Whitlock. Garrett Whitlock has proven he's reliable and stable out of the bullpen. If it's not broke, don't fix it. That's what my dad always said to me growing up. And it's still with me to this day. And I know I don't make these decisions. I know that I feel like people are pretty torn on whether they want Whitlock in the bullpen or as a starter. I'm willing to give it an honest chance if the Red Sox can build him up properly. However, again, you have several pitchers on the market that would probably be better suited in that role, and just keep Whitlock where he's been so dominant and reliable for this team. And if he's 100% healthy, then yes, going into next year after his surgery, I don't know. I'm gonna get mad if I keep talking about this. I think Tanner Houck should go in the bullpen. He obviously had those flashes of really strong innings even as a closer. And then he unfortunately got hurt as well, and he had issues throughout the season. So I'm willing to keep him in the bullpen, of course. I just think Whitlock should be there as well. We saw stuff from Winkowski, Crawford, and Siebold last year, but I don't know if we all saw enough from them to think, oh yeah, like definitely they'll be really good in 2023. Maybe Winkowski, because he did show a lot of good potential. But again, I think Red Sox fans, understandably and rightfully, want proven players if this team is going to be better in 2023. Chaim Bloom has been saying all the right things this whole time since the season ended, but keeping players like Ryan Brasier is going to make fans think, what are we doing here? And I think fans have been asking, what are we doing here since 2019? There's been so many opportunities to get help in positions you need it, and they just haven't done it. And they still need a lot of help. They need a lot of pitching help. They need outfielder help. They need help to be better in 2023. I think that's something we all can agree on as Red Sox fans, that they need to be better in 2023. On November 21st, I don't think they're a better team than 2022. I mean, it's still so early in the offseason, but when they're not even inquiring about pitchers that will immediately upgrade your bullpen or your starting rotation, that's a problem. And hopefully, Chaim Bloom has something up his sleeve. I'm just not feeling very good about where this is headed. And it's still early. We don't need to sit here and say this team's going to suck in 2023. But just again, they know where they need help. They know that you have no idea what you're going to get from James Paxton. You don't have really any idea what you're going to get from Whitlock as a starter, because he hasn't really had that time to be built up as one without kind of going back and forth to the bullpen. So in Nick Pivetta, he was either so good or so bad. And Brian Bayo, there's definitely 100% potential there. But again, potential. We know he'll be good eventually. The Red Sox need proven players, and I think the fans are not going to be happy if they have to continue to wait. I know, first world problems waiting to build this team, but when there's been help out there hanging by a thread, and you've made these trades. You have the Jackie Bradley Jr. trade that did not work out. This Andrew Benintendi trade looks worse. You just look at it and you're like, what is this team doing? Why can't this team get it together? That's probably going to be the question for the rest of this offseason. We have one more segment here on the Locked On Red Sox podcast. As always, we will end it on the Mental Health Minute. So this is the week of Thanksgiving, of American Thanksgiving, and it's a time where people begin to get very stressed. Some people are very, very happy because the holidays are just their jam. They love it. And some people just are Grinches and Scrooges, and that's 100% okay. But I think whether you're a Grinch or you're the happiest person around the holidays, you just need to take the extra minute and just be kind to everyone. You have no idea what people are going through. You have people that are preparing for their holidays without a loved one for the first time. Maybe some people work on the holidays, so they're missing out on their families. I am working on Thanksgiving and Black Friday, so I don't get a break like a lot of people do, but I will be able to see my family, so I'm super fortunate for that. But I won't be able to spend time with my husband because he's also working. But this is the life of sports. It doesn't make me any crankier, but it does make me a little bummed out because I love the holiday season, but this is also the career path that we've been on and that we knew what it was like going into it. But just be kind to people. Again, you don't know what someone's going through. The holidays can be very hard for people for a number of reasons. And it's just, if you see someone being super, super happy and you're like, that's dumb. They say it's free to mind your business. It's free to be kind. And just remember, especially around these times, it can be, like I said, very difficult for people during this time. It can be the happiest moment for people. It can be the saddest. So just go the extra mile. It won't hurt you just to be a little kinder to people, especially around the holiday season. Thank you for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. Please rate, review, and subscribe to Locked On Red Sox right here on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast is where you can find us. You can also find us on Twitter at LO_Red Sox, Jake at Jake Iggy, and then me, Lauren, 3 Laws, Lauren with 4 R's. And be sure to check out all the other shows across the Locked On Network, Locked On Dodgers, Locked On Astros, Locked On Phillies, Locked On Yankees. A lot of good offseason content coming from everyone here at Locked On. And now that you've made Locked On Red Sox your first listen, be sure to check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter to the biggest stories in sports, you go beyond the scoreboard, behind the scenes with local experts and insights that only Locked On can provide. That's Locked On Sports Today, available on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, however you feel like listening to Locked On Sports Today is where you can find them. You can also find Locked On Red Sox wherever you find your podcast. Be sure to check back Tuesday. We still are cranking out content for you. We're going to have Locked On MLB prospects Lindsey Crosby join us very, very soon to talk about potential packages and what it takes to get certain players here. So you do not want to miss that. Until then, have a wonderful Monday. And as always, let's go Red Sox.